Most people will stay broke forever. Not because the world is unfair, not because the odds were stacked too high, but because they surrendered their power before they ever realized they had it. They were handed a mirror and taught to see limits instead of potential. They were given a name, a number, a neighborhood, a job title, and they built their identity around it like prison bars welded in fear. You have to understand this truth. Poverty is not a lack of money. It is a lack of belief, vision, and disciplined thought. You can have a wallet full of hundreds and still be spiritually bankrupt. You can drive a luxury car and still crawl through life as a mental beggar, begging for validation, for direction, for someone else to tell you what your life is worth. The reason most people stay broke is not because they tried and failed, but because they never tried with conviction. They played it safe. They followed the manual of mediocrity handed to them by parents, teachers, and peers who were all just doing the best they could, while drowning in invisible chains themselves. The average person wakes up and immediately consumes. Their first thoughts are borrowed. Their first actions are reactions. They check the news, check the trends, check what everyone else is doing before they check in with themselves. This is how you stay broke, not just financially, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. If the first thing you reach for is distraction, you've already sold your focus. And when your focus is gone, your future is gone with it. Greatness requires intention. Fortune favors the one who directs their energy like a laser, not the one who scatters it like dust. Edison didn't wait for a committee to tell him light was possible. Carnegie didn't wait for permission to build empires. They chose a vision and refused to see the world through anything but that lens. And here you are, living in a world built by people who refused to stay broke, in their thinking, in their habits, in their purpose, while still believing the lie that it's too late for you to rise. What they never tell you is that wealth begins in the dark, not in a spotlight, not with applause, not in a meeting room full of yes men. Wealth begins when you decide in silence that you will no longer tolerate a life of quiet desperation. It begins when you confront the laziness in your own spirit, when you look yourself in the eyes and say, "No more." Most people won't do this. Most people will make excuses, not decisions. They will say, "I can't afford that," instead of asking, "How can I create it?" They will trade possibility for predictability. They will cling to stability while their dreams wither in the attic of their soul. You were not built for that. You were not designed to play small, to shrink into comfort, to avoid risk like it's a disease. You were built to stretch, to sweat, to sacrifice, to scream against the wind of resistance until your voice becomes a roar that echoes through history. The reason most people stay broke is because they think struggle is something to avoid. But struggle is where wealth is born. It is the womb of greatness, the fire that burns off weakness, the arena where your character is sculpted from stone into steel. You will never break free from poverty by wishing for wealth. You must declare war on every thought that tells you to settle. You must exile every habit that whispers, "Good enough." You must learn to stand guard at the gates of your mind with more discipline than a soldier at war, because what enters your mind will shape what flows from your life. The average person consumes entertainment. The wealthy consume ideas. The average person watches the clock. The wealthy lose track of time chasing purpose. The average person talks about people. The wealthy talk about visions, strategies, legacies. If you want to stop being broke, stop thinking like someone who's already given up. You don't need to be rich to start thinking like wealth. You need hunger. You need clarity. You need a mind that is so fed up with mediocrity that it starts burning bridges to every excuse you've ever made. And make no mistake, your mind is either your greatest asset or your most expensive liability. Every thought you entertain is an investment. Every belief you nurture becomes a brick in the house you live in. Are you building a mansion of power or a shanty of doubt? Are you stacking confidence or are you stacking fears disguised as logic? Be realistic, they say, but realism is often just fear with better PR. If every great innovator had been realistic, we'd still be living by candlelight. If every visionary had been practical, we'd still be riding horses to deliver messages. The world was moved forward by the irrational, by the obsessed, by those who believed in what did not yet exist and treated that belief like sacred law. You must decide what kind of thinker you are. Are you one who builds or one who waits? Because waiting is the language of poverty. And every day you wait, you dig the hole deeper, not just in your bank account, but in your character. Then listen closely, because this next moment may be the fork in the road your life's been aching for. Most people will stay broke because they worship comfort like a god. They kneel before the altar of convenience, and they offer their ambition as a sacrifice. They say they want success, but they're not willing to suffer for it. And that's the truth few have the courage to admit. Wealth has a price, and most are too soft to pay it. They want the crown without the cross, the treasure without the toll, the freedom without the fire. But wealth, real wealth, is forged in the crucible of discomfort. It is born when you do the hard thing, even when no one is watching. When you get up at 4 a.m., not for the applause, but because you made a covenant with your own potential. Most people will never taste this, because their lives are built around avoiding anything that makes them feel small, tired, or exposed. But here's the paradox. Growth only lives in the places you're afraid to enter. Discipline only breathes in the air of resistance. If you do only what's easy, your life will be hard. If you do what's hard, your life becomes easy. That's the code. That's the trade. You cannot hack it. You cannot shortcut it. You must become the kind of person who eats adversity like fuel and converts it into force. Think of Rockefeller, who saw financial panic and used it as leverage. Think of Ford, who faced ridicule and bankruptcy before building an empire of movement. They didn't panic. They didn't fold. They adjusted, adapted, expanded. The difference between the rich and the poor is not just money. It is how they interpret difficulty. To the poor mind, struggle is punishment. To the rich mind, struggle is preparation. So ask yourself, how do you respond to pressure? Do you retreat or do you rise? Do you complain or do you conquer? Do you procrastinate or do you produce? The brutal reality is that most people have been trained to panic at the first sign of stress. They've been conditioned to believe that comfort is safety and that risk is danger. But that conditioning is a lie. Real danger lives in the comfort zone. Real danger is waking up at 60 and realizing you played it safe your whole life and still lost. Because safety is an illusion. It's a drug that numbs the pain of untapped potential. It's the padded cell of your dreams, lined with velvet but locked from the inside. If you want to break that lock, you have to start moving differently. Thinking differently, speaking differently. You have to speak the language of abundance even when you're surrounded by lack. You have to walk like a giant even when you're broken and visible. Because wealth doesn't respond to doubt. It responds to energy, decisiveness, obsession. Look at the titans of history. None of them were born into comfort. Most of them were nobodies with nothing but a mind on fire and a refusal to quit. Do you think Walt Disney waited for the economy to improve before sketching magic? Do you think Lincoln waited to be accepted before standing for truth? These men were broke in money but rich in conviction. And that's what it takes. Conviction is the currency of change. But most people can't hold a vision long enough to reach the promised land. They abandon ship the moment the waves rise. They forget that faith is not a feeling, it's a decision. A daily, hourly, moment-by-moment decision to believe in something no one else can see but you. And that's why they stay broke. Not because they didn't have the tools, the time, the talent, but because they didn't have the stamina of vision. They gave up too soon. They quit when the doors didn't open fast enough. But the door was never locked. It was just testing their knock. Most people knock once, maybe twice, and walk away. The wealthy knock until the hinges give way. They refuse to be denied. They don't wait to be chosen. They choose themselves. And here's another truth. Wealth is not something you chase. It is something you attract by the person you become. That's the secret most never grasp. You don't earn millions by wanting millions. You earn millions by becoming someone who solves million-dollar problems. Someone who radiates value, commands excellence, demands greatness from themselves at all times. You must become magnetic. And magnetism is built in silence, in solitude, in the daily grind that no one claps for. Most people want the outcome without the process. They want the fruits without the roots. But a tree cannot rise unless it first buries itself in the dirt and reaches deeper than the storm. And you must go deeper. Deeper than your doubts. Deeper than the noise around you. Deeper than the opinions of people who gave up on themselves a long time ago. Because the truth is, no one is coming to save you. Not the government, not the market, not some influencer with a course and a promise. You are the rescue plan. You are the engine. You are the fire. The question is, will you ignite? Or will you stay in the cold comfort of mediocrity, blaming the wind for not changing direction when you never even raised your sail? Then let the fire rise, because we're not done excavating the truth that most people bury beneath distractions, fears, and watered-down dreams. Most people will stay broke forever because they never define what wealth even means to them. They chase the symbols, not the substance. They want the mansion, but they've never built the mindset. They want the recognition, but they've never crafted the resilience. They look at successful people and see the outcome, but they don't see the internal war. The years of self-overcoming, the discipline etched into every hour, the hundreds of times they failed but refused to fold. The poor mindset looks at the mountain and sees the distance. The wealthy mindset looks at the same mountain and sees the climb. Not the pain of the climb, but the necessity of it. They understand that wealth is not a destination. It's a decision you make every day in how you show up, how you think, how you act, and how relentlessly you refuse to go back to the version of you that settles. Because here's the trap. Most people confuse motion with progress. They work jobs they hate, exhaust themselves for paychecks that barely hold together the illusion of stability, and then call it grinding. But grinding without direction is erosion. You can work hard and still stay broke if your energy is pointed in the wrong direction. The hustler with no vision becomes the hamster on the wheel. The worker who never questions becomes the prisoner who built his own cage. This is why clarity is everything. Without it, you become busy drowning in distraction, addicted to urgency, and allergic to purpose. Most people have dreams so vague they can't build anything on them. A dream that isn't written down is just a wish, and wishes don't create wealth. Only strategy does. Only relentless execution. Only the kind of clarity that says, this is what I'm here to do and nothing will pull me off course. You have to become dangerous with your clarity, ruthless with your time, savage with your boundaries. You have to protect your mind like a vault, because the world will flood you with scarcity every single day. Every advertisement, every news headline, every complaining friend. It's all pulling you toward the gravitational center of mediocrity. You have to break orbit. And to do that, you have to fuel yourself with something stronger than motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It fades when you're tired, when you're rejected, when the money doesn't show up fast enough. But purpose is nuclear. It burns through doubt, through delay, through disappointment. When you know why you're building, you stop negotiating with your lesser self. You stop explaining your dream to people who were never meant to understand it. Most people stay broke because they waste their time explaining, convincing, proving. But the wealthy build. They execute in silence. They know results are louder than any speech. They understand that attention is a currency, and they spend it wisely, not chasing clout, but cultivating mastery. They aren't seduced by instant gratification because they're playing a different game. They're planting oaks, not weeds. Their timeline is different. Their horizon is longer. Their patience is more dangerous than your panic. That's the mindset you must adopt if you ever want to escape the gravitational pull of the average. You must become immune to urgency that doesn't serve your mission. You must build systems instead of just goals. Because systems build empires, goals build fantasies. And don't misunderstand, money is not evil. Money is a magnifier. It expands who you already are. If you're lazy, it amplifies your stagnation. If you're disciplined, it amplifies your vision. Most people stay broke because they blame money for their pain, when it's really their mindset that's keeping them in chains. You've been programmed to believe that wanting more is selfish, that ambition is greed, that wealth is reserved for them and not you. But the truth is, your financial ceiling is a reflection of your internal limits. If you believe money is dirty, you'll subconsciously repel it. If you believe wealth is for the few, You'll always remain among the many. You must rewire that belief. You must understand that wealth is not just allowed, it is required if you want to make impact at scale, if you want to free your time, your energy, your future. There's a reason why most people will die with their best ideas buried inside them. They never created the conditions to bring those ideas to life. They were too busy surviving to build, too busy reacting to dream, too busy pleasing others to listen to the roar inside that said, "You were made for more." But you, right now, you still have breath in your lungs. You still have time on the clock. You still have the chance to defy gravity, to reject the fate of the 97%, to rise with force, with fury, with focus. But it won't come through wishing. It won't come through hoping. It will come through execution, through bleeding for it, through standing up every single time life knocks you down and saying, "You will not break me. You will build me." Because that's the rarest currency in this world. Resilience. Not talent, not genius, not luck. Resilience. The ability to get hit by life and keep walking forward like you were born for the impact. That's what separates those who rise from those who rust. Most people will stay broke forever because they let one failure define them. One rejection becomes their identity. One door slams shut and they walk away from the entire building. But the ones who rise, those rare few who burn through the fog of mediocrity and build legacies, they understand that failure is not the opposite of success. It is the soil it grows from. You must fail fast, fail forward, fail with intention. You must extract the lesson, recalibrate, and hit harder. Most people never learn because they never stay in the game long enough to evolve. They start over every time it gets hard. They throw away the blueprint at the first sign of blood. But if you want to be wealthy, truly, deeply, unapologetically wealthy, you need to love the process more than the prize. And this is where most people lose. They confuse pleasure for progress. They think dopamine equals destiny, so they scroll, they binge, they numb. They run from boredom, not realizing that boredom is the birthplace of brilliance. That silence is where your next million-dollar idea is hiding. Most people will never sit with themselves long enough to hear it. They'll drown in noise, then complain that their vision feels blurry. They never realize that vision requires focus, and focus requires saying no. No to distractions. No to mediocrity. No to anything that dims your fire. The greatest achievers in history, Da Vinci, Tesla, Jobs, they weren't available to everything. They weren't reachable 24/7. They weren't diluted by noise. They were obsessed. And obsession is the cornerstone of transformation. But obsession makes people uncomfortable, doesn't it? Society tells you to be balanced, to take it easy, to not want too much. Be realistic, they say. Don't dream too big. Don't work too hard. But who ever changed the world by being realistic? Do you think Edison was balanced while failing over 1,000 times to create the light bulb? Do you think Carnegie was casual about revolutionizing steel? Do you think Oprah rose from trauma to global influence by playing small and staying in line? Number, they were fanatics, focused, possessed by vision. And that's why they rose while others remained. If you want uncommon success, you must adopt uncommon intensity. You must be willing to be misunderstood, misjudged, mocked. You must become immune to the opinions of people who haven't built what you're building. And here's the secret most never learn. Wealth is internal before it's external. You must be rich in mindset before you're rich in money. You must operate like a leader long before the world calls you one. You must speak with conviction before the crowd believes. You don't become successful and then believe, you believe. And that belief molds you into the person success is looking for. That belief becomes a magnet. But most people let their current bank account dictate their belief system. They look at their empty wallet and assume they're destined for scarcity. But that's not destiny. That's a decision. Your outer world will always reflect your inner dialogue. And if that dialogue is filled with doubt, limitation, fear, your life will mirror it back to you with brutal precision. That's why gratitude is not just a virtue, it's a strategy. Most people think gratitude is about soft feelings and polite thank yous. But real gratitude is war. It's choosing to see abundance while standing in lack. It's commanding your brain to find power in every problem. It's rewiring your focus so that even in the valley, your eyes are fixed on the peak. Most people stay broke because they wait to feel grateful after things change. But nothing changes until you shift internally first. Gratitude is the key that unlocks momentum. It lifts your perspective. It sharpens your focus. It reminds you that you are not a victim. You are a vessel for greatness. And when you operate from that place, you make different decisions. You speak different words. You take different actions. And action, sustained, focused, fearless action, is the bridge between your potential and your power. That's where the transformation happens. Not in the vision board, not in the planning notebook, not in the endless overthinking and someday schemes. It happens when you execute, when you get up and do the thing even when your emotions tell you not to. Discipline is greater than motivation. Most people wait to feel ready. The wealthy build systems that don't depend on feelings. They build habits that carry them through the storm. They make decisions today that echo into the future. And while most people drift, hoping life will deliver them somewhere new, the wealthy steer. They are captains of their fate. They don't wait for the wave, they build the ship. And now, you stand at that same shore. You can either wait for someone to rescue you, or you can become the storm. You can let the winds of adversity push you back, or you can use them to rise. You can stay broke forever, blaming, waiting, shrinking. Or you can rise today, not with all the answers, but with unshakable resolve. Because the world doesn't need more wishers. It needs warriors, builders, visionaries who refuse to be tamed. The choice is yours. Then stand up. Because this is the moment you stop waiting. This is the moment the old version of you dies. The one that hesitated, the one that apologized for wanting more, the one that played small so others could feel big. Bury it. Let it go. From this breath forward, you are not here to survive. You are here to ignite, to dominate, to rise so violently in purpose that the world has no choice but to make room for you. No more shrinking. No more waiting for permission. No more blaming your past, your parents, the market, the government, the algorithm, the economy. All of it. Noise. All of it. Distraction. The truth is, your future has been quietly waiting behind the door you were too afraid to open. But now the fear is no longer king. Now, you walk through that door with fire in your lungs and thunder in your veins. You've been given a mind capable of creating empires. You've been handed time, the most priceless resource in the known universe. And you've been born in an age where knowledge is free and opportunity is infinite. So what's the excuse? What justifies the chains? What lie have you told yourself so many times it sounds like truth now? Erase it. Rewrite the narrative. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too small. You are one decision away from an entirely different life. But that decision won't feel like lightning. It won't come dressed in motivation. It will feel quiet, sober, ordinary. And that's the trap. Because the extraordinary is always hidden inside the ordinary. The wealthy understand this. That's why they act when others wait. That's why they build while others talk. That's why they stay moving when others stall. Wealth is built in silence, in discipline, in moments no one applauds. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it's powerful. So what now? Will you repeat the cycle, or will you rewrite it? Will you look back 10 years from now, proud that you changed, or bitter that you didn't? The clock doesn't pause for indecision. Time is not sentimental. It will leave you behind if you hesitate. That's why the greats move fast. They act in spite of fear. They execute while others ruminate. And when they fall, they rise with data, with wisdom, with sharper weapons. You don't need certainty. You need courage. You don't need the whole staircase, just enough faith to take the next step. And then the next. And then the next. And soon, momentum becomes your oxygen. Doubt becomes powerless. Fear becomes background noise. And that broke version of you, a shadow, a memory, a necessary chapter that birthed the warrior now standing in its place. Most people will stay broke forever. But not you. Not anymore. Because something deep inside you just woke up. Something ancient. Something fierce. A roar that's been silenced for too long. Let it speak. Let it lead. You weren't meant to blend in. You were built to break through. You weren't born to follow. You were wired to create. You weren't given this fire to extinguish it with fear. You were called to set the world ablaze with it. So rise. Rise with hunger in your bones. Rise with fire in your chest. Rise with vision in your eyes. Not someday, now. Not when it's perfect, today. Not when it's safe, while it's still scary. Because this is the truth. The door to wealth is open, but only the brave walk through it. Only the relentless stay. Only the transformed remain. So decide, right now. Are you one of them? Because history is watching, and legacy is calling.